Welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about 3 wild edible plants that you can find growing in your backyard during the wintertime. So let's go see what we can find. First off here we have a Bittercress plant. Oh, there we go. And this is in the mustard family. So it's a cruciferous vegetable. During the wintertime and early spring, the very young leaves are edible. You can eat them fresh. And then as later on into spring, the leaves and such can be cooked. Some people boil them in 2 to 3 changes of water. You can do that. But it is a pretty potent, pretty powerful plant. So, not necessarily something that you want to eat too much of all at once. But during the wintertime, it can be a huge source of vitamin C and other nutrients and vitamins that may be a little bit more hard to find during the colder months. Alright, over here we have some ground ivy. You can kind of see these leaves. They're kind of scallop shaped, a little fuzzy, and they're kind of a purplish green this time of year. And they're purplish, I believe, because of the accumulation of anthocyanins in the leaves. That means when the plant photosynthesizes, it produces sugars, but the phosphorus in the soil is not available to transport those sugars to other parts of the plant. So the plant ends up converting these sugars into anthocyanins. These anthocyanins are potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory compounds. Very healthy to have in the diet. Ground ivy itself, you can eat the leaves fresh, raw. They're a little strong flavored, and they're a little slightly fuzzy, which can irritate some people's throat, but they can be very high in vitamin. I think they have some vitamin A, very high in vitamin C. They might have a pretty good amount of iron as well. This plant is in the mint family. It's a creeping plant, so it can spread pretty well throughout a lot of lawns today and such. You can brew this plant into a tea. It's kind of a sour tasting tea, somewhat minty. Again, another plant very high in vitamin C during the wintertime. Alright, here we have a Bittercress plant. This is another plant in the mustard family. You can see the compound leaves like this. Very similar in shape to the Wintercress, but it's about 5 times smaller. This is a plant very high in vitamin C. Again, pretty much most green edible plants during the wintertime, as you can probably gather from this point, are going to be high in vitamin C. Being in the mustard family along with wintergreen, they're very high in glucosinolates and similar compounds, which have a lot of health benefits associated with them, like anti-cancer properties, cleansing properties for various organs and organ systems in the body. Nice little trailside nibble in the wintertime. Some more over here. Some of the leaves are a little scorched, but others are a darker green, kind of purplish as well. Maybe they have some anthocyanin compounds in them too. Some species are native, some species are non-native. But yeah, they're a nice little peppery addition to any salad, especially this time of year. Leaves of many edible plants tend to be very sweet, and then they can get tougher and bitter as the warmer season approaches and gets into full swing. Now, I know that I mentioned I was only going to talk about 3 edible plants, but I found this little guy here. This is Chickweed, and this plant is very healthy, nutritious green, very high in phytonutrients and healthy compounds. This can be found growing in the wintertime. It sprouts up in the fall, forms a bit of a mat during the wintertime, and then it goes to flower and set seed in the springtime. But yeah, the shoots are edible raw. You can cook them up, you can make them into a tea. The tea might have some medicinal applications. But yeah, another good source of vitamin C and other nutrients. I'm not going to harvest from this plant though because I'd kind of like to see it spread a little bit more. That way maybe I can get even more of this plant in future seasons and then harvest a crop from that. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this video on the wild edible plants. There are so many wild edible plants all around us. You just have to look around, be observant, see what kinds of plants are growing around you, and do your research. See which ones are edible or useful to you in some way, and it can be a great asset to have and a great way to boost your nutrition, especially when you find the edible plants during the wintertime. And you can have a really potent source of vitamins and nutrients that you might otherwise potentially be more deficient in during that time of the year. 3 important points you want to keep in mind when you're foraging, just for safety. Make sure you have positive identification of the plant in question, right? Sometimes there can be poisonous plants that may look similar to the edible ones, and you want to make sure you pick the edible ones and not the poisonous ones for obvious reasons. So another note is that be observant of where you're harvesting these plants, right? Generally you want to avoid roadsides from airborne pollution, and you want to avoid train tracks for the same reason. Train tracks, sometimes certain entities will dump massive amounts of toxic chemicals to keep the weeds down, and you don't want to be ingesting that stuff. So also, make sure you're harvesting from areas where people don't walk their dogs, or where the land has been sprayed with an herbicide, maybe a neighbor's lawn, hopefully not your lawn, but always be observant and aware of where you're harvesting these plants. Also, as an additional note, if there are certain plants that might be native or might be endangered in a certain area in particular, maybe you don't want to harvest those, but maybe let them grow, maybe even propagate some more if you have an opportunity to do so. That way future generations of those plants can flourish in those areas. But yeah, always harvest responsibly, and understand that it's not just food for us, but food for other animals, for other organisms, and these plants also have their own important role to play in the ecosystem. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you got something from it. I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Take care.